Jim Carrey walked a red carpet in Paris, and the internet promptly lost his mind. The 64-year-old actor made a rare public appearance at the César Film Awards on February 27th, and within hours, social media was flooded with comments calling him unrecognizable, totally different, and speculating nonstop about plastic surgery, fillers, and every cosmetic procedure you can think of. Photos from the event bounced around tabloids and timelines, and a lot of people reacted less to how he actually looked and more to the shock of seeing one of the most animated faces of the 1990s now clearly in his 60s. But when you move past the memes and the hot takes and actually listen to someone who studies faces for a living, the story gets a lot less dramatic. A triple board certified plastic surgeon, Dr. Rafi Ovsepian, took a careful look at comparison shots of Jim Carrey from 2024 and from that César Awards appearance. Instead of feeding the "what did he do to his face" frenzy, he came to a much calmer conclusion. What we're seeing is mostly normal male aging, maybe with a bit of subtle cosmetic maintenance, but nothing extreme. Let's break down what he actually pointed out, because it helps cut through a lot of the noise. First, the upper part of Carrey's face, the forehead and brow. That's an area where any major surgical work tends to show. A brow lift, for example, can leave a very particular look. Arched brows, a slightly pulled or surprised expression, unnaturally smooth skin across the forehead. Dr. Hovsepian didn't see any of that. He described Carrey's forehead and brow region as entirely consistent with what you'd expect in a man in his 60s. The lines, the way the skin sits, the overall shape, nothing jumped out as surgically altered. Around the eyes, fans were quick to comment on tiredness, hollowing, and looser skin. Those changes are very common with age. You lose fat under the eyes, the skin thins out, and gravity does its thing. People online started throwing around the term eyelid surgery or blepharoplasty. But again, the surgeon looking at the photo said there are no clear signs that Carrey's had that procedure. Instead, he described what he saw as mild hollowing and some skin laxity that fit perfectly into the category of natural volume loss and dermal thinning. Where most people thought Carrey looked the most different was in the middle of his face, the cheeks, and the area under the eyes. In older images, his mid-face was a bit flatter and more angular, which is actually what you typically expect in male facial structure. At the César Awards, his cheeks looked somewhat fuller. That extra fullness is what had so many people shouting fillers. In the comments, Dr. Ovsepian did acknowledge that the mid-face appeared slightly more filled out compared to recent past photos. But instead of treating that as evidence of some huge overhaul, he explained that it could easily be the result of a mild amount of hyaluronic acid filler or even temporary swelling from a recent skin treatment. That kind of subtle volumizing is very common in both men and women as they age, especially in Hollywood. The idea is to restore a bit of lost volume so the face doesn't look gaunt, not to create dramatic pillow face features. He also noted that when a man's mid-face becomes rounder or more filled, it can soften the sharpness that many people associate with a traditionally masculine look. The ideal male mid-face, from an aesthetic standpoint, is often flatter and more structural. So when that area gets fuller, even in a small way, fans are used to a more chiseled version of someone can feel like their entire face has changed. Moving down to the lower face and jawline, there's some softening there too. The jaw isn't as razor sharp as it once was. The skin along the jaw and neck is relaxed a bit, and the overall lower third of his face doesn't have the same tightness it did in his 30s and 40s. Again, that's about as common as gray hair at his age. Dr. Hovsepian described those changes as extremely typical of aging in men. There was nothing that screamed surgery went wrong or overdone work. Just skin, fat, and muscle responding to time. This is where the surgeon pushed back hardest against the more sensational reactions. Some people were trying to lump Carrey in with celebrities who have clearly had very aggressive procedures. Overfilled lips, frozen foreheads, heavily stretched skin. Dr. Hovsepian flatly rejected that comparison. In his view, he's seeing a man in his 60s whose face shows natural structural aging and, at most, modest cosmetic maintenance that can look different depending on lighting and camera angles. That last part is important. The César Awards red carpet had very specific lighting, different from what we're used to seeing Carrey under in controlled interviews, movie sets, or magazine shoots. Strong overhead lights, hard flashes, and high-definition cameras can all exaggerate facial volume, shine, and texture. If he had any recent treatment, like filler, skin tightening, or even a light chemical peel, swelling combined with harsh lighting can create a noticeably different effect. Dr. Ovsepian emphasized one more key point that gets overlooked in a lot of plastic surgery speculation: how the face moves. In his words, the most crucial principle in male aesthetics is preserving character. If you overdo it, especially with an expressive actor, you smooth out all the lines and tighten all the skin, and suddenly the person's trademark expressions don't read the same. Faces look off not just because of what's been added or taken away, but because they stop moving like themselves. With Jim Carrey, even at 64, his face still moves naturally. When he smiles, talks, or reacts, he still looks and feels like Jim Carrey. That, to the surgeon, is a strong clue that any cosmetic work, if it exists at all, has been conservative rather than extreme. No frozen forehead. No glassy, immobile under eyes. No tight, mask-like lower face. So why did so many people feel like they were looking at a totally different person? Part of it is simply time. We're dealing with an actor whose most iconic roles, Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, are burned into people's brains in the 1990s and early 2000s. When you think Jim Carrey, your mind goes to that rubber-faced, elastic, hyperactive guy in his 30s and 40s. But those images are 20, 25, even 30 years old. We've watched him sporadically since then, but not in the constant, high-gloss promotional circuits that most A-list movie stars live on. On top of that, Carrey stepped away from Hollywood for stretches of time. He spent years painting, doing fewer public appearances, working on passion projects, and not filming a steady stream of blockbusters. His return to mainstream film came through the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, where he plays Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik. And that role pretty much hides his real face. As Robotnik, he's covered in costume, makeup, giant mustache, and exaggerated styling. It's basically a live-action cartoon. It doesn't give you a clear look at the man underneath in the way a drama or a grounded comedy would. So for many fans, the last strong memory of a real Jim Carrey face is either the younger him from classic comedies or the heavily costumed him from Sonic. Seeing him in 4K head-on at a prestigious French film event with age-appropriate lines, softer features, and a bit of added mid-face volume. Of course, that's jarring, especially if you haven't adjusted your expectations for what a 64-year-old version of that same man will look like. Carrey himself has never shied away from poking fun at his situation. In a December 2024 interview, talking about returning to the Sonic universe, he joked that he came back because he gets to play a genius, which he admitted is a bit of a stretch, and that, frankly, he's bought a lot of stuff and needs the money. That kind of self-awareness and humor about his own career in life is exactly what fans love him for, and it stands in stark contrast to the more panicked tone of some online comments about his face. If he has chosen to do any subtle cosmetic maintenance, whether that's a bit of filler to combat volume loss, skin treatments to even out texture, or non-surgical tightening, that would place him squarely in line with a huge number of actors, both male and female, trying to navigate aging in an industry that freezes your younger face in time through endless replays. The key difference is that, according to an expert who actually studies these changes, nothing about his look suggests a dramatic overhaul or procedure gone wrong. What people are reacting to is mostly the shock of confronting the reality that time moves, even for the most elastic faces in entertainment. It also says a lot about how we treat male aging in comparison to female aging in Hollywood. When actresses in their 40s and 50s show even the slightest change, speculation about Botox, lifts, and fillers explodes. For male stars, we're only now starting to see that same scrutiny. Jim Carrey arriving at the Césars and suddenly being called unrecognizable is part of that broader shift. Fans are beginning to realize that the men they grew up watching are aging too, and they're reacting in real time. In the end, this comes down to two very different narratives. The social media version is simple and dramatic. Jim Carrey had something major done, and now he doesn't look like himself. The expert version is far more nuanced. A 64-year-old man, with a face everyone remembers from decades ago, appears in new lighting and new photos showing normal structural aging, some softening, perhaps mild volumizing the cheeks, and no strong evidence of invasive surgery. His facial expressions remain natural. His overall identity is intact. If there's cosmetic work, it's gentle and conservative, not radical. Jim Carrey hasn't publicly addressed any specific procedures, and he doesn't have to. That's his business. What we can say, based on a specialist analysis and what we can all see, is that his appearance lines up far more with the ordinary passage of time than with the kind of extreme cosmetic makeover people immediately assumed. For fans, it may just take a beat to recalibrate. The guy who wants to contort his face into anything on command is now in his mid-60s. He's still expressive. He's still Jim Carrey. But he's also human. And like everyone else, his looks are evolving. So the next time his name trends because of a red carpet photo, it might be worth remembering what the surgeon said. This looks like natural male aging, possibly with a touch of subtle maintenance, not some catastrophic attempt to fight time. And if anything, the fact that his face still moves the way it always has might be the biggest sign that, underneath the headlines, not that